Hello, everybody, and welcome to Amateur Cast, where I get in you and your replays to be casted for my entertainment and hopefully to help you improve a little bit as well. I'm your host, ZookaMan, and we're going to be going into a TVZ. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our players. On the top left-hand side of the map, Habitation Station Alliteration, we have Theraga as the red Zerg player coming from the clan Evix, I believe is how you pronounce that. I might be wrong, and I probably am, but that is just what I'm going to guess at this point. His opponent on the opposite side of the map, we have a Brandon coming in as the blue Terran player. And I've been casting a lot of TVZs lately, so I've been seeing a lot of different styles coming out from a lot of different players, and it's always interesting to see kind of what we're going to be seeing from our players this game. Brandon definitely going to be going for the supply depot a little bit in a weird position. Usually you're going to be seeing that on the wall, but this is going to block off the gas, I believe. So I'm not sure exactly what his whole plan at this point is, or anything along those lines. We have gas coming in from Theraga back home, which means that we probably are seeing a pool laid down fairly shortly here, which also means we might be seeing a little bit of early aggression here, which might be moved out across the map to just get a little bit of scouting done, get a little bit of SCV kills. And still not entirely sure what the side depot works. Maybe it's for when the Zergling run-bys come in, he can just pop it up and then have a little bit of defense, but then they can just kind of go around the other side. I'm not sure exactly why that's there, to be perfectly honest. We do see a spawning clue coming up for Theraga right now. No natural expansion has been taken yet, but I wouldn't be too surprised to see that coming up fairly shortly here. He's going to saturate his gas a little bit late, doesn't need to put another one on there, and he is going to be able to do that. Be interested to see if he goes up to the 100 gas and then cuts gas reduction, or if he continues on into the Bangling test nest tech, which is also a very popular thing to see in the matchup. From our Terran player, we are going to be seeing him going up onto his barracks now. He's going to be finishing up his wall off, so I'd have to say that the only reason the supply depot was there is just for that extra defense against a lot of Zerglings being rushed into his base or something. Orbital command is going to come up right about where you want it, usually in the 16 to 18 supply, so definitely keeping up on that. We don't see a natural expansion from our Zerg player yet. He's going to have his Metal Boost coming out on the way, as well as a few Zerglings. Would not be opposed to seeing him take his natural expansion fairly shortly here. And I wouldn't also be opposed to sending out a few Zerglings across the map to get a little bit of scouting information. Barracks is up on the map, going to be going for a Marine off of that. I'm assuming that after he's done with the Marine, he's probably going to be going for the reactor so that he can do the factory switch, as that's just kind of what happens a lot in the matchup, being that the Hellions are very, very good against Zerg units, especially the Zerglings and drones, which is a lot of what Zerg players are doing in the early game right now. So if you don't have the proper defense against that, you can definitely be caught unawares. We're going to be seeing the reactor started when we continue on for a couple more Marines, which is going to put him a little bit behind in that regard. Definitely not optimal. Definitely would like to see that drop down. Ooh. Okay, I think we're going to be seeing a 1-1-1, guys. This is odd. You don't really see 1-1-1 anymore. At least I have to assume that's what he's doing, because he's going for a really early starport. It's really odd. Theraga back home is going to be going up for his natural expansion here. Is a little bit behind on his supply. Later, not yet coming out from him, but he does have his Bangling nest up and operational. Metal Boost is, of course, finished up at this point as well. And he's going to lose an Overlord here to the Marines' watchful eye. Meanwhile, we're seeing the factory used for the tech lab on the starport. So now we're going to be seeing 1-1-1. Good, because there's a really good reason why that's not used. Yeah. I just read chat there and definitely got a little bit distracted. We do have an engineering raid coming up from our Terran player back home. Natural expansion just now finishing up from our Zerg player. Doesn't really have a whole lot coming up. Wouldn't be opposed to seeing him drop down his layer fairly shortly here. Meanwhile, Brandon going up onto his natural expansion, as well as getting up his engineering bay for the upgrades. And we do have a Banshee opening definitely going to be coming out here, which is what's mostly popular out of a tech lab opening. Even though tech lab openings aren't necessarily very popular in the first place. Just because the Banshee isn't necessarily as good as it used to be, and it's not really used quite as much as opposed to a lot of other things that are better and a little bit more standard. So we have Zerglings out across the map. Just to get a little bit of scout off here, we're going to be starting off a little bit of a wall off here for Theraga. Going to be dropping down in a single evolution chamber as opposed to going for the double upgrades. Just a little bit of a mistake that you see a lot in the lower levels. Oh, he's going to go for that now. Oh, I see he didn't have the resources to do them both at once. So he did one and then dropped the other one down when he had the money to do so. Brandon is going to be up onto his second orbital command, but doesn't look like he's going to be wanting to lift that off to natural expansion fairly shortly here, which is a little bit of a disadvantage. We do have siege tanks on the map. We do have, I believe, at least one Banshee moving out across the map. Yep, just one. Not going to go for a second Banshee, but definitely doesn't need it, to be perfectly honest. No spores! Oh, no, we're going to have one spore over here, which is going to essentially just shut down this entire push. Or this entire pressure, excuse me. So he's going to go on from the natural expansion. Theraga needs to pull the drones. Somebody's needing the advantage to pull the drones. That's alright. He can morph in an Overseer and go for... No, he doesn't have a layer. This is awkward. So the Banshee is going to be able to get into the natural expansion. It's going to get a couple of drones, I believe, about 4. Spore Crawler of Brave Origins is going to be planting itself up under that Banshee. Get aside. Nope. We don't like your kind here, and it is going to die. The Brave Spore going to be saving the lives of so many. Keep going, brave little Spore. Meanwhile, we're missing another Banshee coming up from our Terran player at this point, which is a little bit odd. Usually you want to see the double Banshee at the same time as opposed to going for one Banshee. Oh no, it died. I should build another one. Lots of circles out across the map at the natural expansion here. Baneling Nest is up, so he probably could, if he want to, move in and get a little bit of a Baneling bust done. But it looks like he's going to follow up with Roach Play. No Hydros Den is out on the field. Still a little bit undersaturated as natural expansion. Does need to fix that. And both players would be very good to... Well, Terran player would be good to take his natural expansion, but Zerg player definitely would be good to take his third base as well. We are seeing that +1 on the weapons attack layer coming out finally from our Zerg player. A little bit late, to say the least. Meanwhile, we do have that +1 coming out from the Terran Bioforces, which is really actually small. Oh no, this is gonna... Oh, lots of Zerglings. Zerglings are going to be aware of this expansion now. One siege tank is all that's up right now, which isn't really going to be able to be enough. Because they're just going to surround it and kill it. And, yeah. Awkward. No bunker. But he does have a second siege tank on the high ground. And that should be enough to take care of the Zerglings. A few roaches are going to get a little bit caught out there. We do see that the natural expansion is, once again, a little bit undersaturated. 36 to 26 harvesters right now. Not a good position to be in as a Zerg player. Drone. So important to keep up on your drones. Because you just not, if you do not have your economy at the very least, even with your opponent as a Zerg player, you are just not in a good position because you are not able to trade very well, and a Zerg player needs to trade and needs to use their macro capabilities to win fights. We do see Skim and Combat Shield coming up from our Terran player now. We're going to be seeing him grab his third and fourth geysers, excuse me. A little bit behind, but besides that seems like he's pretty good. Behind in bases, I mean. Besides that, he's pretty good on what he's doing. Is going up into Ravens. And he's living at large here. We're going to be seeing the Hydros Den now down, and he has Groove Spines, I believe? Yes, Groove Spines, which is the attack range of Hydralisk, increasing by 1, if I believe so correctly. Yes, he is going to be increasing that by 1. Going to be getting his +2 on his melee units as well as that. Did it finish up, I think? Yes, it did finish up. I was like, better not have canceled that. Definitely where my mind is at right now, guys. Terran player is going up onto his +1 armor. I believe he might have... Yep, he already has his attack. Wouldn't be opposed to seeing the armory come down so that he's able to keep up with that. Third base would not be out of the question for either player at this point. And definitely, from the Terran player, units. Look at your bank. Very, very large. Need to get that down. Drop down barracks. Produce a large number of Marines. I don't know. Do something here to get that down a little bit. Zerg player going to be doing a little bit better on that fact. However, he is only on about 40 harvesters on 2 base, which is just kind of abysmal, to be perfectly honest. Usually you want to be on at least 16 at each base on the minerals, 3 on each geyser. And at this point, the Zerg player definitely wants to be on the 3rd base, just optimally wants to be on the 3rd base, especially considering that Terran player is going to be going up into his 3rd at the gold base, completely unscouted, which is not going to be a good position for the Zerg player to be in, because he's not going to be able to trade quite as efficiently as the Terran player can. We do have the combat shields and stim and concussive shells all finishing up at this point. Those are all going to be finished, and the +1 armory is going to be finishing up as well. We do have an armory coming down for the upgrades of the advancement. Brandon, when you pull, you don't pull all of your workers. Apparently he's going to do the I want the gold-based mined faster. And he's going to oversaturate that in order to do so. Alright, we do have Banshee out on the field right now. Is going to just kind of sit here. Because that +2 attack on the infantry weapons, as well as getting that +1 ships and vehicles planning to level 1. Him coming out from our Terran player, now going to be going up onto Ravens as well. Guard-Wing Constitution just now finishing up for our Zerg player as he takes his 3rd base, and that 2-2, I believe. No, 2-1 will be coming up from him as well. He's going to keeping up on his Hydra's production. He's going to be mixing in a few banglings in there just to make them a little bit more effective. And he's looking pretty decent in his composition. Definitely, income is about... Well, that is going to tell you a big deal. 800 to 900 minerals ahead of his opponent from the Terran player because of those mulling capabilities, and that's a big deal as a Zerg player when you're behind a base. You really don't want that to be happening. We're going to be seeing barracks added on here for our Terran player. Is going to be going up onto a large amount of Marines. Meanwhile, we're going to be seeing infestors put out from our Zerg player. Does he have... No pathogen glands. No, you need your pathogen glands for your infestors to be extremely effective. But he's going to be going up onto his high-tech now. Pathogen glands definitely would be a good idea to grab now that he has his infestors out. Definitely needs to remember to get that, as it's going to help a lot with getting out the correct number of infestors. We do have a lot of Marine... Oh, there's the Zergling. It was like, why are you trolling me mini-map? Zergling is going to get up into the gold base. He's going to scout. Oh no, my Terran opponent is on a 3rd base, and he's on a gold base. So, hopefully, he's going to react accordingly, and he... Almost no doubt. Only on 2 investors here, which is a little bit odd. Would like to see a couple more, and once again, pathogen glands will be researched out. That would be a great thing, as well as dropping down to 4th base from the Zerg player. But he's going to be moving out, which I very much do like about his play. He's in a very decent position. He has a higher... Well, actually, let's take a look. Army supply, actually the Terran player is ahead. However, you guys got to keep in mind that the splashes on the drop play are going to be coming up into the 3rd base, as well as that natural expansion. And that's going to get cleaned up fairly efficiently here. He's going to get a couple of drones here, a couple of drones there, which is definitely going to make a little bit of difference. But as I was saying, you got to keep in mind here, folks, that while he's a little behind in supply, he does have the bangling counts up, and in this level where there aren't really a whole lot of splits, that can prove to be a big deal. Oh, banglings are going to get trapped in the middle of the army. Oh, that's just not a fun thing to have happen. So the Zerg army is going to be getting a good fun growth coming off onto the Terran army, but the Terran army is going to be losing it. And suddenly the Zerg player is going to be able to move up into that 3rd base and get a few SCVs at the very least, if not just take out this base entirely. But he is going to lose a couple of overseers because of it, because the missile turrets are overpowered. +2 coming out from our Terran player for his armor. Meanwhile, we're missing our Zerg player going to keep producing. Doesn't even drop down to 4th base here. As he's going to be canceling his opponent's 3rd base, it's definitely a good position for him to be in, and it would be amazing to see him kind of catapult himself further into the game and give himself a little bit more of an economic advantage. We do have one Raven coming out. Oh, not really going to be able to do a whole lot, but we do have a Banshee with the Cloak, so that's going to get a little bit of damage done here. The 3rd base is going to go down, however. The Zerg player is going to be doing a good job there. Once again, still like to see him take a 4th base behind this, but I think that he did get a decent amount of damage done, and was able to put his Terran player behind in Harvesters, 23 to 39 at this point, which definitely puts himself into a decent position. Does need to get out some more units here, because it looks like our Terran player is going to be wanting to move out a little bit, but I cannot see that being a problem at all. Spire coming up from Theraga at this point, which is a little bit interesting. I would have to say Mutalisks are not necessarily your best friend at this point. Definitely would prefer seeing you move up into Ultralisk and get Ultralisk Cavern and get Ultralisks, as opposed to going for the Mutalisks, because they're not really going to do much for your army like an Ultralisk would, because Ultralisks are tanky and they're able to take a lot of damage, obviously, because they're tanky. And Mutalisks are going to be able to get harassment out, but that's not necessarily the big deal here. Oh, misplaced command center. Oh. Yeah, but that's not necessarily the big deal here. The big deal is going to be that you want to keep up on your composition before you aggress. And I think that it's a little bit more important to see the Ultralisks, which are a little bit more practical, I think, in this situation. Unos definitely not a bad choice, but I think that Ultras would definitely be a better choice. So we're seeing Brandon going up onto a really aggressive gold base here, going up onto his aggressive 4th base at his opponent's gold. Meanwhile, he's going to be taking an additional base. Theraga's going to scout this and is going to be able to move out into night, which is very, very good. It's good to be able to do this, and as a Zerg player, this is one of the major strategies that you like to see, especially in this matchup, is starving out your opponent, keeping him from being able to produce anything, and if you can snipe the bases before they can get the income, then you're in a good position there. 3-3 coming up from our Zerg player back home is about a quarter of the way from being finished, but not really much coming out from the Terran player, just going to keep up onto his production here. He is going to be getting a good little art here. I believe he's on, nope, he's only on 2-2, so he's not going to have the upgrades advantage. However, he is going to have the fact that he has stim over his opponent, which is a big difference. We are missing additional infestors can be researched out at this point, which I do definitely do like. However, I think he needs to get the Passing Glance if he wants to keep him on his infestor production. That's going to be the big deal. Also, I also don't like the fact that he has a few Mutalisks here, because they're not really doing anything. Mutalisks are a big swarm enemy. You need to have a lot of them for it to be especially effective. It's a little bit difficult to do sometimes. Brandon moving up into the 3rd base over here, going to be trying to get a little bit of damage done. Theraga is going to scout this and is going to be able to defend accordingly. His 3-3 is just going to be finishing up, so he's going to be ahead in upgrades for the fight. However, he is not going to have the fungal growth because he doesn't have his Passaging Lance finished up, which means that he's going to have to wait for the fungal growth and kind of try to rely on his units that he has. There's a little bit of the pressure coming up from the Raven. Doesn't really need to pull everything back to defend against that. A couple of Mutalisks will probably be able to do that. Meanwhile, excuse me, Brandon gonna be kind of missing an opportunity here to move in and get a little bit of damage done, but he's gonna do it. A siege tank contain, which is a little bit interesting. Theraga going to be throwing out his entire Hydralisk production in favor of a Roach Mutalisk production, which is a little bit interesting. Mutalisks are poking forward to seeing what this opponent is about, but now going to be putting in some Hydralisks, so definitely going to be kind of undecided, I think, is probably the best word. A little bit of a Terran force is going to be moving up over here. A little bit of a micro there, forcing units ahead a little bit more, but he's going to be able to take care of that. But third base is probably going to go down. There's a siege tank somewhere. Oh, it's up there. Duh. Also going to get taken care of fairly efficiently. So I definitely don't really think his composition is very... I had a word that I was going to say, but I don't remember it now. Darn. Well, we're going to be seeing +2 carapace. I thought he already got through 3. Oh, that was just 3 melee and 3... Okay. It's a little bit weird doing that before carapace. Oh, we're going to be seeing +2 flyer attack. Excuse me. Added on as well at this point. And he's going to keep up on his Hydros production. Once again, don't necessarily agree with the Mutalisk at this point. I think Ultras would be a little bit better for his composition. Or Infestors, or just, you know, one Tier 3 attack unit would be fairly good off of 3 base. Speaking of which, 4th base would be a brilliant thing to see out of Theraga. 5th base attempt from Brandon would be a great idea as well. We're going to see a 4th base can be exactly coming down here from Theraga. And Brandon not really saturating his 4th base. He's going to get up onto doing that now. And he's going to saturate this base over here. A little bit oversaturated. But he's still getting his resources in. 27 to 42 Harbingers, and vastly in favor of our Zerg player at this point, which is definitely a good position for Theraga to be in. And he's going to be going up onto Roach, Hydra, Muta, Infestor. Which is a little bit weird. There's a lot going on here that is kind of interesting. I agree with the Roach, Hydra, and Infestor, that's fine. Or the Roach, Hydra, Muta, or the Muta, or I would agree with several different variations of this. However, I don't necessarily agree with this variation of it, because it feels like it's a lot of different compositions kind of squished up together to try to make something that's as effective as possible, but not really necessarily getting to that. Because you definitely want to be having more Infestors than a couple Infestors. You want to have 4 to 6 against a large Bioball. And you want to have more than 6 to 8 Mutalisks to keep up on the Mutalisks. So I feel like he's kind of not committing to anything, and that's kind of affecting his tech. He's kind of trying to do everything. Which as a Zerg player you can do, but not till very, very late in the game, and most of the time it's just with tech switches. You don't ever really get all of the tech up together in one. So right now the 5th base get denied here from Brandon, which is a decent thing for him to have happen at this point. He is up onto his 3-3. He's been up on 3-3 for a while, so I don't know why I'm pointing it out. Regardless, the little contingency of bio is going to be taken care of here, is going to get that 5th base, however, which is definitely going to prove that they're useful. You know, we have one Infestor going to get sniped there, and the other one is not going to be landing a single Infest in Fungal Growth because it is trapped behind the Roaches. Oh no. Oh no. Oh. No, wait, no, it got A-moved. Oh. That's unfortunate. So 5th base is going to be remade from our Zerg player here. Is going to be going out for a counterattack. Is going to leave the Raven alive for some reason. Because. And is going to go over to the 4th base of his opponent. 3rd base, sorry. 3rd base of his opponent. And is going to kind of move in and, well, get rid of the entire army of his opponent. That is going to be taken care of all fine and dandy. Sniped, and the Zerg player is probably not going to win it here, unless the Terran player keeps, of course, throwing his units one at a time at his opponent. Which it looks like that might be exactly what he's doing at this point. Yeah. Yeah. So Zerg player's going to get up into the natural expansion. He's going to be facing some tanks, but he has Mutalisks. So tanks are essentially useless. And he's going to move up to the natural expansion. He's going to get quite a bit of tech done from here. And Brandon is going to be on 0 mining bases and at 38 minerals. So he really can't produce anything at all. Unless he decides to, of course, float off and start once again. Resetting the game completely. We have one missile turret over, or auto turret, excuse me. That's kind of just going to sit over here and get taken care of by Mutalisks and Zerglings. Meanwhile, Brandon is going to be, he's going to lose a Raven. And there comes the GG from Brandon. So what can we learn from this game, guys? Well, we'll start with the Terran player, because he was the one who lost, and that is the way we usually work things right now. What's one thing that could have... Oh, whoa, he had a fusion core. And no battle cruisers. That's a little bit interesting. I normally didn't notice that. Anyways, the Terran player, I think one of the biggest problems that he had was, one, very low medevac count for a lot of the game. 2, the Banshee pressure was pretty decent, but he didn't really do anything off of it. 3, he wasn't necessarily being very aggressive, and I think that Terran players kind of don't understand that as a race, Terran is just so well optimized as a race for aggression. And the other two races, Protestant and Zerg, can be aggressive. However, Terran, to a certain extent, in order to win some games, especially TVP and to a certain extent TVZ, needs to keep up pressure. And that's a good way to keep yourself in the game when your opponent is up onto additional bases ahead of you. However, we didn't see the Zerg player do that, which is going to be my next point for the Zerg player. The Zerg player is on 4 established bases at 36 minutes in the game. The Terran player was at about 4 or 5 and was pretty much expanding a little bit later than what you normally would see in higher level games. So definitely expansion patterns are, or keeping up with your expansions is an important part of the game. And as a Zerg player, it's even more important because, like I've said throughout the game, if you are a base behind your opponent, you're not able to trade as well with your opponent, and Zerg needs to be able to trade and needs to be able to produce and essentially swarm their opponent. So being a one base behind means that you can't really put in a max of 50 Mutalisks and be able to overwhelm your opponent or something like that. Or tech switch and overwhelm your opponent with like Ultralisks or Mutas or something along those lines. And something else to point out from the Zerg player's play, I know I did say it a little bit, his composition was a little bit lacking. He didn't necessarily have a direct composition, and for a lot of the mid-game to late game, he wasn't necessarily following one tech path. Instead, he was kind of mushing a lot of tech paths together, which is just something you don't want to happen because you can't commit fully to Mutalisks when you're also having to deal with the Infestors. Or you can't fully commit to Infestors when you have to deal with the Ultralisk production on top of it. And at a certain extent, once you get up on more bases, that's a little bit easier to do, but you have to commit to one specific tech style and stay with it, as opposed to doing all of the tech styles. And I believe that's really all I have to say about this, guys. A few announcements here before I go. For one, if you are interested in my summer tournament coming up on the 28th of June, I will put my email in the description below. Please send an email to that with the race, the league you are, the race you are, and the count of the name of the account that you're going to be using in the tournament, and we'll get you set up from there. Registrations will be closed the week before, and I might have my live co-caster Sin come join me as well. If you are interested in this content, enjoy the content, as always, please like, comment, subscribe, share. Really does help me, gets me more people to enjoy this show, and as well as getting more replays and stuff in there as well. If you're also interested in this content, I do a live stream over on Twitch TV. Once again, that will be in my description, which is essentially this, but it's going to be in a live environment where I get in players from the audience to play games for my entertainment and the entertainment of the chat. And aside from that, I don't think there's really anything else to say. Please take a look at my Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. All of those are going to be in my description below, and go check those out. Like, comment, subscribe to YouTube, and like, favorite, whatever the heck it is on Twitter and Facebook, to keep up on my content, as well as when I'm going live with other things and putting out videos and stuff like that. I always make sure that I get that out there. So with that entire spiel done, I believe that's really all that I need to say. If you guys have any questions, as always, let me know. And this has been ZookaMan, and we'll see you on the next cast.